Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Saturday, 21st June, 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Iran finds itself embroiled in escalating tensions with Israel, raising regional concerns about a broader conflict that could draw in the United States, despite previous promises to avoid further involvement in the Middle East. This conflict is straining both economies, with potential disruptions to global oil trade if Iran restricts shipping through vital waterways. The hostilities, which include Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and military leaders, have triggered both ground combat and a digital crisis intensified by the rapid advancement of AI. In response, Iran implemented a nearly 4-day nationwide internet shutdown, though some citizens managed to regain unreliable connections, often using VPNs, to bypass government restrictions. Elon Musk has activated Starlink in Iran, though its use remains illegal there. Amidst the conflict with Israel, Iran has acknowledged the detention of a German bicyclist. Despite Iran's long-standing claims of adherence to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, and its benefits from the treaty through civilian nuclear technology, its covert activities violating the treaty's safeguards have eroded trust and fueled an ongoing international crisis. Turning to the United States, President Donald Trump announced U.S. forces conducted strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites, Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan, with Fordo as the primary target, declaring the attacks very successful and claiming they had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. He warned that further targets would be engaged with precision if peace did not come quickly. This action followed reports suggesting American B-2 bombers were moving into position for the assault. Aircraft capable of carrying bunker-buster bombs needed to penetrate underground facilities like Fordo. The U.S. intervention in Iran is viewed by some as a high-stakes gamble, and the decision to strike surprised some lawmakers. Trump thanked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and God after the strikes. While congressional Republicans have praised the action, many Democrats and some Republicans argue that the president should have consulted Congress beforehand. The U.S. has now joined Israel's war against Iran and is bracing for Iranian retaliation. Trump disregarded testimony by his Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who stated in March that Iran was not seeking to build a nuclear weapon, although Gabbard later claimed her testimony was taken out of context. Steve Bannon is reportedly playing an outsized role in Trump's Iran decision. Meanwhile, in Israel, strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities and military leadership have ignited ground combat and information warfare, highlighting a digital crisis amplified by rapidly advancing AI tools. Israel has reportedly killed 3 more Iranian commanders in its offensive. Bill Clinton has stated that Benjamin Netanyahu wants war with Iran to stay in power, not peace with Palestinians. Analysts suggest Israel's actions are a gamble, with no guarantee that any new Iranian rulers would be less hardline. Israel's conflict with Iran has escalated dramatically in the past week, marked by intensifying exchanges of strikes and heightened tensions. Israel has launched several attacks within Iran, specifically targeting nuclear facilities located in Isfahan and Khoemer, as well as an Iranian nuclear research facility. These strikes resulted in the death of Iranian military officials, including Saeed Ezadi, the head of the Palestine Corps of the Quds Force, who was allegedly involved in planning Hamas's attack on Israel. In response, Iran has launched drones toward Israel and threatened retaliation against the U.S. for its involvement in Israel's air campaign. The strikes have reportedly caused hundreds of casualties in Iran and dozens in Israel, severely impacting both countries' economies. Demonstrations expressing anger at Israel's widening offensive have erupted in Iran, Iraq, and Lebanon. Additionally, Israel has struck sites in southwestern Iran, potentially impacting flight paths used by U.S. warplanes. The United States has joined Israel in its air campaign against Iran, targeting 3 nuclear sites. President Trump declared that the U.S. dropped a full payload of bombs on Iran's primary nuclear site, Fordo, and warned of further strikes if peace is not achieved promptly. Senator Lindsey Graham has publicly supported these attacks, emphasizing the threat of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. The U.S. is reportedly deploying B-2 bombers to Guam, signaling a heightened military presence. Iran has vowed retaliation in response to the U.S. involvement, and President Trump is considering further actions to dismantle Iran's nuclear capabilities. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza has worsened due to the ongoing conflict, with reports indicating numerous casualties resulting from Israeli attacks. Gaza's health ministry reported that 202 people have been killed in Israeli attacks in the last 48 hours. Aid seekers continue to be targeted. While Israel has begun allowing some food into Gaza, primarily through JHF, the amount reaching the UN and other humanitarian groups remains limited, and both systems face significant challenges. Internationally, the ongoing conflict has sparked widespread concern. Iran's foreign minister has urged the U.S. to refrain from joining the war. Turkey has voiced concerns about a larger war erupting between Israel and Iran. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has called for increased support for Syria to facilitate the return of refugees. European diplomatic efforts aimed at achieving a ceasefire have stalled. Turning to India, the Israel-Iran conflict is expected to have significant implications affecting its strategic stance, the safety of Indian workers in both Israel and Iran, potential evacuation plans, trade relations, and overall financial and geopolitical dynamics. The Union Government of India has initiated Operation Sindhu to evacuate Indian nationals from Iran due to the escalating conflict. In other developments, Israeli scientists at the WHAM Institute of Science are working to salvage their research following an Iranian missile strike on their campus in Rehovot, which caused damage to buildings. Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia University student, has returned to the northeast U.S. after being detained for protesting against Israel's war in Gaza. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has selected potential replacements for military commanders and himself in anticipation of possible Israeli strikes. Ukraine marked Day 1213 of Russia's war with key events, including the deportation of Serhiy Serdyuk, a Ukrainian head teacher from Komish-Soria, who was banned from Russia for 40 years after refusing to implement the Russian curriculum following the 2022 occupation. His wife and daughter were also following reported as strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. United States President Donald Trump addressed the nation from the White House, claiming a spectacular military success and the total obliteration of 3 uranium enrichment facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Trump stated the aerial attack, conducted in conjunction with Israel, aimed to destroy Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and eliminate the threat posed by Iran, demanding Iran make peace and threatening further attacks if Tehran does not stand down. US lawmakers offered mixed responses, with some, including Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders, condemning the attack, while most Republicans praised the action. Trump stated he does not care if his claims on Iran's nuclear weapons contradicted the intelligence community, which he claims is wrong on Iran. The United States is reportedly moving B-2 bombers to Guam, although it is unclear if the deployment is connected to tensions with Iran. New Zealand is deploying a Defense Force plane to the Middle East following US strikes on several nuclear sites in Iran, entering the country's conflict with Israel. In Belarus, Serhiy Tsikhanouski, a popular blogger and activist jailed in 2020, was freed following a rare visit from a top U.S. envoy. As leaders from NATO's 32 countries prepare to gather for a summit in The Hague, NATO's prevailing sentiment is a desire to send a clear message that Russia is the primary threat to the alliance. China has conducted over 1,000 hours of testing on Huawei's Harmonious 4 microsatellites, specifically the Dalian 1 Lianli CubeSat, to evaluate subsystem performance using the Open Harmony real-time operating system, aiming to reduce reliance on foreign software. The International Olympic Committee is seeing outgoing IOC President Thomas Bach, a 71-year-old German lawyer, departing after facing challenges including state-sponsored doping by Russia and the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on the Tokyo Games during his tenure. United Kingdom. The UK government is injecting £275 into training and apprenticeships throughout England. Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds unveiled the investment aimed at bolstering technical excellence colleges and upgrading training providers, a move perceived as countering Nigel Farage's political sway. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has publicly criticised the Glastonbury Festival performance by the band Kneecap as not appropriate, following band member Liam O'Hannide's court appearance over allegedly displaying a flag supporting Hezbollah and voicing support for Hamas at a November show. In London, train services were disrupted due to a fault, forcing passengers to evacuate and walk along the tracks near Loughborough Junction Station on a day marked by high temperatures. Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky reported that Ukraine received at least 20 bodies of Russian soldiers in recent exchanges, citing disorganization within Russian military ranks. He urged Western partners to allocate 0.25% of their GDP to assist Kyiv in ramping up weapons production, signaling Ukraine's intent to strengthen its defensive capabilities. Furthermore, Ukraine's security service is now conducting educational sessions in high schools to inform teenagers about Russian recruitment attempts. United Nations. Former UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon is calling for a major reform of the United Nations to enhance its effectiveness in tackling global issues. He pointed to the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza as examples, highlighting the urgent need for a stronger multilateral response. Japan, the United States, and the Philippines Coast Guards held a crisis simulation amid rising tensions with China concerning territorial disputes. This joint effort underscores Japan's strategic alliances. A scheduled high-level meeting between Japan and the U.S. was cancelled following reported demands from the Trump administration for increased Japanese defense spending. In defense cooperation, Japanese, British, and Italian companies have partnered to develop a next-generation fighter jet, targeting a 2035 completion date and appointing a CEO for the joint venture. Domestically, efforts are underway to support the cultivation of Japan's oldest citrus variety through local initiatives. Some businesses in Japan are marketing products that mimic the effects of illicit drugs, but use legal ingredients, exploiting loopholes in the country's strict drug laws. The nation is transitioning from its rainy season into a period of intense summer heat. In Brazil, a hot air balloon carrying 21 people crashed in Praia Grande, Santa Catarina, early Saturday. The accident resulted in 8 deaths and 13 injuries. The hot air balloon caught fire before plummeting to the ground. Some passengers reportedly jumped from the burning aircraft. Injured survivors were transported to local hospitals. The southern region is a well-known tourist spot. China is seeing a rise in adventure tourism, with citizens favoring remote locations over urban centers. Thousands celebrated International Day of Yoga, demonstrating the practice's growing appeal and improving diplomatic ties. A Beijing official warned Hong Kong of continued national security threats as the national security law approaches its 5th anniversary. The head of China's United Front Work Department urged religious groups to guard against hidden dangers and foreign infiltration, promoting the sinicization of religion. The Fujian aircraft carrier is developing deck load strikes for swarm attacks, aimed at giving China's Navy an advantage through rapid aircraft deployment. Droughts in Shaanxi province and other Chinese regions are causing global food supply disruptions, impacting wheat, beef, and coffee prices. Hong Kong's economy may be splitting into two sectors. Financial and business services are boosted by China's tech economy, shifting the balance of power between Washington and Beijing. Belarus saw the release of opposition leader Serhii Tsikhanouski after nearly 5 years of imprisonment, as he was granted a pardon. His 2020 arrest, occurring shortly after he announced his candidacy against Alexander Lukashenko in an election, ignited substantial protests challenging Lukashenko's governance. Tsikhanouski's activism was a catalyst for widespread demonstrations. Coinciding with this release, U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia Keith Kellogg visited Warsaw, Poland, and engaged in outreach to Lukashenko. This diplomatic endeavor facilitated the release of at least 14 political prisoners. Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, Serhii's wife, shared a video capturing their reunion following his release. Pakistan plans to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. This nomination acknowledges his perceived role in resolving conflicts between India and Pakistan. Trump is considered a genuine peacemaker by Pakistani officials. Meanwhile, Pakistan is delicately balancing its relationships with Israel and Iran. It offers moral support to Tehran through public criticism of Israel. Simultaneously, Pakistan supports diplomatic efforts to revive the Iran nuclear deal involving the United States. This aims to keep Pakistan distanced from regional conflict. Donald Trump has also stated he averted nuclear war and saved millions of lives. He believes his peace efforts have been insufficiently recognized. The United States is deepening its defense ties with Taiwan, highlighted by a senior Taiwanese officer's participation in a U.S. military exercise held in Alaska. Meanwhile, China's People's Liberation Army, PLA, continues its increased military activities around Taiwan, serving as both training and strategic messaging. Responding to regional dynamics, Taiwan issued an alert after the U.S. carrier Nimitz was deployed to the Middle East, leading analysts to debate balancing operational needs with Indo-Pacific strategic priorities. Australia is seeing political fallout over a potential conflict with Iran. Greens leader Larissa Waters strongly condemned the U.S. bombing of Iran. She called it a breach of international law. MP Hastie expressed reservations about involving Australian troops. He noted logistical support decisions rest with the government. Hastie also called for transparency regarding the U.S. military presence in the Indo-Pacific. Shifting our focus in France, President Emmanuel Macron's government faces growing pressure amid widespread protests against pension reforms. These reforms, which raise the retirement age, have sparked significant unrest across the country. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, the government is grappling with rising inflation and a cost of living crisis. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is under increasing pressure to implement measures to alleviate the financial burden on households. The Bank of England is closely monitoring the situation and considering further interest rate hikes. Across the Atlantic, the United States is experiencing ongoing debates regarding its national debt ceiling. Negotiations between the White House and Congress are crucial to avoid a potential default. The outcome will have far-reaching implications for the global economy. In Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz is navigating a complex energy transition. The country aims to reduce its reliance on fossil fuels and increase its investment in renewable energy sources. This transition presents both opportunities and challenges for the German economy. Turning to Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is focused on environmental protection and combating deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. Lula is seeking international cooperation to support these efforts. His administration aims to reverse the environmental policies of his predecessor. In the latest from Canada, the Competition Bureau has suggested opening the domestic airline market to foreign companies to potentially reduce fares. However, Air Canada argues that taxes are the primary driver of high ticket prices. The debate continues as stakeholders weigh the benefits of increased competition against existing financial burdens. Thailand is currently experiencing political turbulence as Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra navigates potential defections, a senatorial court challenge, and impending street protests demanding her resignation. Sudan, despite the internal pressure, which has been amplified by a leaked phone call, a key official from Shinawatra's ruling party has asserted that she will neither step down nor dissolve the parliament. The United States faces criticism as the Trump administration's cuts to foreign aid are projected to weaken HIV prevention efforts, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, where the AIDS pandemic remains most acute. Turning to China, the recent departures of multiple Chinese ambassadors from West African nations are raising concerns about escalating tensions, potentially linked to resource nationalism. Cyprus has seen the arrest of a British man on suspicion of espionage and terrorism. He allegedly surveilled the RAF Akrotiri base. Authorities suspect links to Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Beyond these security concerns, rap battles, accompanied by lute and fiddle, continue as a vibrant part of Cypriot cultural expression. European nations are struggling to find common ground regarding the Israel-Iran conflict, hindering the formation of a cohesive European strategy. Reflecting this discord, large pro-Palestinian demonstrations involving tens of thousands have occurred throughout Europe, urging a ceasefire in Gaza and voicing worries about the growing hostilities between Iran and Israel. Nigeria continues to grapple with security concerns as a recent suicide bombing in Borno State claimed the lives of at least 10 individuals and left several others injured at a local restaurant. Adding to the region's woes, a separate suicide attack, suspected to be the work of a female operative linked to Boko Haram, resulted in the deaths of at least 20 anti-jihadist fighters, also within Borno State. These events highlight the persistent threat posed by extremist factions in the area. The United States is currently facing a wave of protests. These demonstrations are in response to the Trump administration's strict immigration policies. Vice President J.D. Vance recently traveled to Los Angeles. Former President Trump is still claiming the 2020 election results were fraudulent. He has not provided verifiable evidence to support these claims. Xiaomi, the Chinese electronics brand, had closed its physical stores in Paris by 2022. The company shifted its focus to online sales in the city. Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have initialed an agreement aimed at resolving the ongoing conflict in eastern DRC, a development hailed by Trump as a victory for both Africa and the world. Yoga is quietly growing in popularity in Zimbabwe, especially in lower-income communities like Chitomweza, despite historically being more common in affluent areas. In a move towards restitution, the Netherlands has returned 119 Benin bronzes to Nigeria, artifacts that were seized during the UP's colonial-era looting of Benin. Americas. Forecasters predict a 50% chance of a tropical depression forming off the coast of Central America and southern Mexico early next week. The United States, a major financial contributor to the United Nations, has reduced its funding, causing concern for the UN's humanitarian operations as it approaches its 80th anniversary. A 55-year-old French national has been arrested and charged in France for allegedly commissioning online child sexual abuse crimes in Colombia. Asia. Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto has openly embraced Singapore's strategies for housing and investment, citing the city-state as a blueprint for Indonesia's future growth. In India, large crowds participated in the 11th International Day of Yoga, engaging in public practices in parks and on beaches across the country. Japan dispatched 2 Air Self-Defense Force transport aircraft to Djibouti to prepare for a potential evacuation of Japanese citizens from Israel and Iran. Vietnam's Tu Thiem district in Ho Chi Minh City could potentially see the construction of a new Trump Tower, following Eric Trump's exploration of real estate opportunities in the area. Middle East. In Syria, authorities have detained a cousin of former President Bashar Assad on accusations of drug trafficking. This individual is already under U.S. sanctions related to his alleged involvement in illicit activity. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.